what it was like walking into the Phil
Yeah.
Spector session. So I was the first one. I think I was the first musician there. You know, I was the youngest musician probably by a decade there, and I was the first one there loading my. I had a pretty new, only about a year old Ampeg B15 amp. They're pretty heavy, you know. I parked in the lot, and there's probably about 6 steps that go up to A, and it was at A&M Studios.
Hmm.
I walked down the hall, and there's Phil Spector in a 3-piece suit. And he has, you know, like at a convention back in the day before they had lanyards and plastic laminated, typed up, you know, things that you get with your
Yeah.
name and who you're
The
affiliated with.
name tag.
He
Yeah.
had little name tags, you know, with the old school ones with like the red border, white with a red border, and he had a little stack of them, and he had written like I believe, famous people in historical figures on them. I don't know if he saw, you know, that I was Jewish from walking down the hall with my rabbinical looking beard at the time and my long curly locks. Uh, he gave me a tag. He says, "Put this on." I think I introduced myself, you know, "Put this on," and it was Adolf Eichmann. So I was Adolf
Oh,
Eichmann for the night.
oh.
So that's how it started. And then the musicians, my whole story about punctuality,
Yeah.
you know, in music business or any kind of business, I think entertainment business, you know, if you're on time, you're late. So I was probably a half hour early or something, you know,
Yeah.
got my stuff and set it up, or even more, 45 minutes, and nervous as fuck. You know, I was 20 years old, about to be playing with John. And then all the musicians start piling in, and there were 26. There was a huge horn section, I think 6 guitar players, 2 drummers, Hal Blaine, Jim Keltner, 3
Wow.
keyboard players, all the, you know, kind of Wrecking Crew guys, and then Wrecking Crew guys, you know, in the horn section. Plaz Johnson, he was on it. Nino Tempo from April and Nino.
Yeah.
Do you know about them?
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
a record collector, I think he was the leader of the horn section, and he was a buddy of Phil Spector's. I think they'd gone way back, worked together. You know, I was meeting these people. Hi, I'm Bob. You know, like sheepishly and just getting set up to see what's coming. And then
Yeah.
what came was John and May, and then there was all these people hanging out in the control room. But before that happened, before anyone showed up, I was the first one there. Uh, he started playing. He was in the control room,
Who's
and
he? John or
Phil. No,
Phil?
John
Okay.
wasn't there
Okay.
yet. Phil.
Phil.
Phil
Okay.
was there, and Hank Sakala was there as the engineer. The tape operator that came out from New York with Hank, I think that's who the engineer was Jimmy Ivy.
Amazing. Amazing. Who
So
I'm
where I
sure you
first
worked
met
with
Jim.
over
Well,
the
I
years.
ended up working with him in the
Yeah.
80s, you know, with
Sure.
starting with Stevie Nicks and then on some other stuff. But I think Kenny Rogers, Cher was there, Harry Nilsson, like people had come to view, you know, through the looking glass, like the aquarium, view the session. You know, it was John Lennon. And I was in the control room, and he started playing River Deep, Mountain High, which turns out to be his biggest, you know, failure in his mind because it wasn't a huge hit. Incredible record. And he
Yeah.
played it really loud. He had him play it really loud in the control room. And when that playback ended, he was ranting, Phil. I mean, I could see he was, you know, he's charming, but kind of a lunatic,
Well, I
you
think
know?
history would show that to be
Yeah,
the
yeah.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, I caught that pretty fast. He just started ranting. That's the greatest fucking record ever made. That play me a better record than that. You know, he was going off, like showing
Wow.
his disappointment. I knew the record, you know. And so, okay, and then guys started filing in, and then I went and took my place, get sounds. He loved that I brought a little pig nose amp, and he loved that. I plugged in and got this kind of distorted sound. He kind of loved that. But I guess besides the music that went down and the kind of semi-chaotic scene, at some point during the actual recording session, once John got there, who was drinking a lot of vodka in the studio, He was sitting right across from me, though. I mean, it's like I'm looking at you. He was
Wow.
very close to me, probably like 8 to 10 feet. The guitar players were all over here, sitting. I was with another great bass player, Ray Neapolitan, who did the heavy lifting. I just kind of noodled around. I didn't know what to do with another bass player. Although I played with another bass player who is very well known in my high school jazz band, John Clayton. So I kind of knew how to play with one a little bit. But anyway, moving ahead, we're in the middle of doing a take, or between takes or something, and Phil, who has a 3-piece suit on, at some point takes his suit jacket off and puts it over a chair, and you can see the shoulder holster
Oh, wow.
with the pistol, snub nose. I'm not a gun guy, but it's probably like a 38 snub nose or a 45. I don't know what the hell it was. But Jesse Ed was sitting right to one side of me. And he goes, "Hey, Bob, you better tune up fast." I think it was between takes, and all the guitar players were tuning up, to the piano. Or I don't know if anyone even had a chromatic guitar tuner that you plug into back then. Wow. Maybe a couple guys did. I don't think I did. I may have had one. I don't know. It was right about the time they were getting popular. But that was kind of the funniest thing that happened. And then it was kind of like a 3-ring circus.
That's what May's article described. I'm going to ask you about that. Something she
did
said
she say that? I didn't lift that from
before
her.
I have a couple questions before that. How do you have 26 people in the studio, and Phil Spector is obviously well known for the Wall of Sound having this many musicians.
He was trying to recreate that, obviously.
Yeah, and how does, if you have any recollection, he or somebody orchestrate 26 musicians to do this? Are you given parts, or are you figuring out what to do?
I actually don't remember how that went down. I think at some point he may have said to Nino or Plaz or one of the horn players, "Hey, you guys, I just want like whole notes and like ba ba da 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 ba." He'd probably sing a lick or something. Or one of the horn players maybe would just go to the others, "Hey, why don't we do ba da 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 da," or ba ba da da da, or whatever the lick was. I think that is one of the lines on "Can't Catch Me, You Can't Catch Me." But it came together fairly quickly. I think they had some kind of language. He had obviously worked with a lot of guys in the room.
Yeah,
Hal Blaine,
right,
and they just kind of knew what to, and maybe one of the keyboard players, one or two, and he had some kind of telepathic way of pretty quickly conveying what he wanted, and then the song just kind of played itself the way John played. He played a little rhythm guitar, but then I think he put it down because there were already 6 guitar players, and it just kind of fell together real fast. Here's the song. It's just the way we're going to play it. But the horn thing was maybe Phil and one of the horn players discussing it very briefly, and then it just came together. And we'd run it a time or two and then just record it.
And would John interact with the musicians? Was there relationships that you noticed that he had?
He wasn't real. He was super friendly and outgoing and funny, but he didn't really interact as far as telling anyone anything to do. He was just, seemed like he was just along for the ride, and he just sang,
Yeah.
And sat there and sang and drank.
Right.
He had a part of the 3-ring circus. He had like a bottle of vodka that would be one of those bottles that you see in an old school liquor store at the end of an aisle. That's maybe about, what's that, about 3.5 feet high.
Yeah.
Bigger than a double Jeroboam of champagne. But I want to say it was like Smirnoff vodka. So it was like a prop, but it seemed to be a real bottle. I might be exaggerating how big it was, but it seemed to be like almost up to my waist.
Wild.
I won't say he drank, a big portion of it, but he was drinking during the night. So it went down real. To use the overused word organically, it did. It just kind of went down multiple takes, he might have said, "Hey, you Bob," or what, like, why don't you play up high and let. I don't even know if I don't think he ever told me anything. I think it was discussed between Ray Neapolitan and myself, the bass player. He just played all the bass, and I just noodled around up high and stayed out of his way as well as I could. And the guitar players just all, okay, guitar players, they play together.
Yeah.
I think, like one guy's playing low, the other guy will just go play high or mid, So if there's six
two
of them,
basses is not common, right?
not common, no. No, Quincy Jones used them on some of his early solo, not early, but late 60s, early 70s solo records when he had Ray Brown playing upright and Chuck Rainey on electric. So I was familiar with that kind of thing, but Ray we were both playing Fender basses, so they weren't like distinctively different sound. That's where the pig nose came in, and playing up high with kind of like a mic on it.
Well, in the article I read that May described the session, she also described it as not, she didn't say through a ring circus, but that was the gist of it. And what she said, which I thought was interesting, and I want your perspective, is that John was like the innocent in the room. He didn't really know what was going on, and Phil Spector is putting together, orchestrating these sessions, and it's a party.
Yeah.
And the session musicians are there because it's a great party. They're there to do their job too, but this is a party, and John is just in the middle, doesn't have control over it, and is just going with the flow of it.
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. I don't know about John was there. The musicians were there because it's a party. All the musicians were serious musicians. They wanted to do it, their job, get in, do it, get out. It's kind of what we do.
Yeah, in the article she does, and I believe that. And her perspective was these sessions were a party, and the musicians. It's interesting, and the musicians are there for they want to get the job done, but.
Well, yeah, I didn't look at it like that myself, even though it was a party.
Yeah,
I just was like, wow, I'm playing with John,
Yeah.
And but I do remember. I wish I had. I was probably too young, too nervous, and didn't think of it. A couple of the older at that time, they were probably 30 years old, or 32 years old. They brought Beatles records for him to sign.
Amazing.
And
he would
he
do
was
it?
very gracious. Oh yeah, he signed them all.
Really
Not
cool.
a lot of them. I think I remember seeing Plas Johnson across from me. He probably had a daughter at home or a son.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
I doubt if it was for him. Yeah. So John was very sweet, and I won't say real personable, but he was very sweet, because there are too many people to be personal with. He couldn't remember that many names. Yeah. But he had heard my name from Jesse. That's another one that Jesse dropped my name to. And some, he actually, heard my name, went, well,
amazing.
Yeah, he said, Bob, well, we got to use them just for that name or something like that. It's in a magazine article, like from that period.
I love
before the album was done.